When we think of Winston Churchill, we picture the quintessential British bulldog. He is the ultimate symbol of resolute strength, a man whose sheer willpower guided an entire nation through its darkest hours. But behind closed doors, that famously unyielding leader fought a terrifying, lifelong battle with his own mind. He suffered from severe bouts of depression, a suffocating presence that he famously called his black dog. Over the decades, society has built up what you could call the Churchill example. It is an incredibly popular story of a man who managed a crushing mental illness purely through relentless grit, long hours, and heavy physical labor, like laying bricks at his country home. He even wrote a literal prescription for this method. In his essay, Painting as a Pastime, Churchill championed creative hobbies as the ultimate cure, arguing that keeping the hands busy provided a complete distraction from mental overstrain. It is a deeply inspiring narrative. It is also completely false. This idea of heroic self-management misdiagnoses his actual biology, actively harms modern public health messaging, and masks a staggering historical hypocrisy that historians have spent decades trying to hide. For years, historians and doctors have fought a proxy war over his diagnosis. Many biographers claim his black dog was nothing more than situational sadness, a normal, temporary reaction to political defeats. His own physician later in life, Lord Moran, claimed the exact opposite, diagnosing Churchill with bipolar I, a severe mental disorder characterized by extreme swings between major depression and mania. The evidence for a severe disorder seems compelling at first glance. Churchill boasted of a glowworm manic energy, famously survived on almost no sleep, and made terrifying admissions about his own suicidal impulses, once stating he couldn't stand near the edge of a train platform for fear he might jump. Yet his defenders quickly point out a glaring flaw in the bipolar I theory. Churchill produced more books, speeches, and political victories than almost any human in history. He was never functionally disabled by his moods, which is a core clinical requirement for diagnosing severe bipolar disorder. To understand why a severe diagnosis fails here, we have to look at this biological visualization of the HPA axis in the human body. The HPA axis is our central stress response system. True clinical depression is a systemic biological dysfunction where this axis overworks, flooding the body with elevated neurotoxic levels of the stress hormone cortisol. Looking directly at this PET scan data, we can see the deep neurochemical divide between unipolar depression and bipolar disorder. Notice the distinct spatial patterning of AMPA glutamate receptors. These are critical proteins that facilitate communication between neurons. Bipolar disorder presents a completely different density map of these receptors compared to standard depression. Because these mood disorders cause such intense systemic physical damage to the brain's plasticity, they severely impair a person's ability to function. Churchill's lifelong political output proves that whatever biological illness he had, it could not have been the extreme, debilitating condition his doctor alleged. The answer actually comes from a far more qualified source, Lord Russell Brain, a renowned neurologist who treated Churchill for 2 decades. He observed that his patient possessed the distinct drive and vitality of cyclothymia. This graph shows exactly how cyclothymia works. It is a chronic mood disorder on the bipolar spectrum. While the deep peaks and valleys show the extreme, debilitating swings of bipolar I, the second overlaid line shows the tighter, milder, but highly repetitive wave pattern of cyclothymia. This specific biological footprint explains everything. It completely accounts for his restless late-night energy and his dark suicidal fears. But because the swings are milder, it never once triggered the total functional collapse that would have ended his career. Churchill was genuinely biologically ill, but his condition was calibrated in such a way that his immense political ambition and ceaseless work ethic were actually symptoms of his pathology, rather than a simple triumph over it. So why have biographers fought so fiercely to classify his intense moods as completely normal sadness? Partially, they are defending the great man theory of history, the idea that exceptional individuals shape the world through sheer innate virtue, rather than being driven by a psychiatric condition. But there is a darker, hidden political reality. As Home Secretary in 1910, Churchill was a vocal, aggressive proponent of the British eugenics movement. He actively supported the findings of a royal commission focused on the feeble-minded, directly advocating for the compulsory sterilization of citizens deemed mentally unfit. He even pushed for their forced segregation into state-run labor camps to stop what he viewed as the multiplication of madness. The cognitive dissonance here is staggering. To assign a clinical psychiatric diagnosis to the revered savior of Western democracy is to place him squarely in the exact same category of the unfit that he himself campaigned to lock away and sterilize. Categorizing the black dog as a passing bad mood serves a specific function. It acts as a historical firewall, shielding the great man from his own severe eugenic hypocrisy. This historical cover-up bleeds directly into our lives today. When society takes Churchill's specific ability to self-manage his milder cyclothymia and extrapolates it as a universal model for handling all depression, we create a massive public health dilemma. The myth tells the average person that true strength means outworking your mental illness. This totally contradicts modern, evidence-based psychiatric care, implying that needing therapy or medication is a failure of character, a failure to be a bulldog. Churchill himself rejected the idea that he could simply power through clinical depression with willpower alone. In a 1911 letter to his wife, he discussed a relative who received treatment in Germany. He explicitly framed his black dog as a recurrent medical issue, writing that the physician might be useful to him, quote, "if my black dog returns," and noting how the doctor had, quote, "completely cured her depression." The real Winston Churchill was a pragmatic man who logically and openly considered utilizing medical science to treat his condition. We have to stop using a fabricated, romanticized version of his life to stigmatize the vital psychiatric care that millions of people rely on today.